The world felt like it stopped. His hands trembled as he stared at the paper in front of him, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear his own thoughts. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. He read the words again, blinking, his throat tightening. Probability of paternity, 0%. His breath caught in his chest. The paper crinkled under his tightening grip. His entire body felt numb, yet inside, a storm was raging, a hurricane of betrayal, disbelief, and heartbreak. This was his son. His boy. The child he had held in his arms, comforted through fevers, sang lullabies to at night. The baby that had gripped his finger so tightly on the day he was born, as if he knew who his father was. Except, he didn't. The truth was staring him in the face, written in cold, scientific certainty. The child was never his. His stomach twisted. He had loved this boy with every part of his soul. He had built his entire world around this family. Around her. And now, in 1 second, everything he had known was a lie. He exhaled sharply, trying to stay in control, but his mind was already flashing back. The doubts. The strange behaviors. The excuses. He should have seen the signs. Maybe deep down, he had always known something wasn't right. But he had trusted her. And now? Now he was staring at proof that the woman he loved had lied to him. That she had let him believe a fantasy while hiding the truth. His vision blurred, rage and pain crashing into each other like waves in a violent storm. He looked up. She was standing right there. Her eyes darted from him to the paper in his hands. She could see it now, the realization hitting him all at once. The truth was out. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something, but for the first time in his life, he didn't want to hear her words. Because how do you even begin to explain a lie this big? Silence filled the room like a thick fog. She stood frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, her face unreadable. The same face he had once looked at with nothing but love, now all he could see was a liar. His throat felt tight, the words burning inside him, but he refused to be the first to speak. She took a small step forward. I can explain. He let out a sharp laugh, though there was no humor in it. Explain? Explain what? That for years, she had let him believe a lie. That every time he kissed that little boy goodnight, whispered, "Daddy loves you," she had known it wasn't true? The anger inside him simmered dangerously. You lied to me, he said finally, his voice low but steady. She flinched. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to. His voice rose, the pain sharpening every word. You didn't mean to what, exactly? Let me raise a child that isn't mine? Let me believe I had a son? Let me give my entire life to something built on a lie? Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared. He shook his head, feeling something inside him crack. Scared? She was scared? What about him? What about the years he spent loving this child as his own, never once questioning? He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. He felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath him. How long? He asked, barely recognizing his own voice. She hesitated. How long? He repeated, his jaw clenched. Her lips trembled. Since the beginning. His stomach twisted. He had held on to a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, this was some kind of mistake. That maybe the truth had come out later, after years of believing the same lie he did. But no. She had always known. Who is he? He asked, his voice hollow. She sucked in a breath, her gaze dropping to the floor. He took a step closer. Who is he? I don't. Don't lie to me again. His voice was cold now, steady. The part of him that had once worshipped her, that had loved her unconditionally, was gone. She swallowed hard. Then, in a whisper, she said a name. The room spun. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone he knew. His friend. His world tilted. The air felt thick, suffocating. He repeated the name in his head, over and over, trying to make sense of it. No. It had to be a mistake. His fists clenched as he stared at her. Say it again. She lowered her head, avoiding his gaze. Say it. His voice was sharp, filled with a rage he barely contained. She swallowed hard, then whispered it again. The name sent a fresh wave of betrayal crashing through him. He let out a hollow laugh. Unbelievable. Of all the people in the world, it was him. A man he had trusted. A man he had called a friend. A man who had been in their lives, sharing meals, laughing, shaking his hand like everything was normal. Like he hadn't stolen something irreplaceable. His chest burned. His mind raced, flashing back to all the moments he had ignored. The times he caught them exchanging quick glances. The nights she came home later than usual. The sudden changes in her behavior, the quiet arguments, the dismissive excuses. And that man, his friend. Acting like nothing was wrong. Joking with him, asking about the baby, pretending to be just another part of their lives. It was a game to them. You let me be a fool, he muttered, shaking his head. She reached out. Please, it wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. He took a step back. Don't touch me. Her hand dropped. I never wanted to hurt you. He scoffed. Too late. A deep, suffocating pain settled in his chest. The kind that didn't fade. The kind that changed a person forever. You had years to tell me the truth, he said, voice laced with exhaustion. Years. She wiped at her eyes. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you lied. Silence stretched between them. He looked at the paper still clutched in his hand. The DNA test that had unraveled his entire life in a single sentence. He is not the father. He took a shaky breath, then turned toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising in her voice. He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. All he knew was that he couldn't stay here. Not with her. Not in this house. Not in the ruins of the life he thought was real. The front door slammed shut behind him. Cold air hit his face, but he barely felt it. His body moved on autopilot, his legs carrying him down the street, away from the house, away from her. His mind was racing. This couldn't be real. It felt like some sick nightmare, a cruel trick his brain was playing on him. But the paper in his pocket was real. The DNA test didn't lie. And neither did the name she whispered. The name of the man he once trusted. The man who had been in his home, shared meals with him, laughed with him. The real father of the boy he had been raising. His stomach turned. How long had they been lying to him? How many times had that man smiled in his face, knowing what he had done? The rage inside him grew, threatening to explode. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen. He wanted to call him. Demand the truth. But what was the point? His wife had already confessed. The damage was done. What could the man possibly say that would make this any better? Nothing. He shoved the phone back into his pocket and kept walking. He needed space, needed to think. For years, his life had revolved around that child. He had been there for every milestone. First words, first steps, first birthday. And now? Now he was just nothing. A stranger. The thought shattered something inside him. Could he really just walk away? Would the boy even understand what was happening? Was he supposed to stop loving him just because of a piece of paper? His feet slowed as a deep, suffocating pain settled in his chest. No matter what the DNA said, he was still the one who raised that child. He was the one who held him when he cried, who taught him how to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when he had a fever. He was the one who had been there. And now, because of a lie, because of a betrayal, he was expected to walk away. Was that fair? His hands clenched into fists. He had no answers. Only pain. The sound of his phone vibrating in his pocket made him jump. He pulled it out. Her name flashed on the screen. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, with a deep breath, he answered. "Hello?" His voice was hollow. She hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, she said. "He's asking for you." His breath caught in his throat. The rage, the betrayal, the pain, it was all still there. But so was something else. Something he couldn't ignore. The child. The little boy who had no idea what was happening. His fingers tightened around the phone. "He's asking for you." The words stabbed through his chest. He could picture the boy in his little pajamas, clinging to a stuffed animal, waiting by the door with those wide, innocent eyes. The same eyes that had once looked up at him, trusting, believing he was his father. His stomach twisted. "Where is he?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "In his room," she said. "He won't go to sleep. He keeps asking when you're coming home." Home. That house didn't feel like home anymore. Not after what she had done. But the boy, he was innocent. No matter how much rage burned inside him, no matter how broken he felt, the child didn't deserve to suffer for her lies. He swallowed hard. "I'm coming." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. As much as he wanted to walk away, as much as he wanted to burn every memory, he couldn't ignore the child who still saw him as his father. Maybe it wasn't fair. Maybe it didn't make sense. But his heart wouldn't let him turn his back. When he stepped through the front door, the house felt different. Colder. Like a place he no longer belonged. She was standing by the hallway, eyes red, hands nervously gripping the hem of her sweater. He didn't look at her. Didn't speak. Instead, he walked straight past her, toward the small bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently, stepping inside. There, curled up in bed, was the boy. His tiny body tucked under the covers, his stuffed bear held tightly in his arms. At the sound of footsteps, the boy's eyes opened. "Daddy?" His heart shattered. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The child still thought he was his father. He wasn't. The DNA test said so. The truth said so. But in this moment, with those tiny arms reaching up toward him, did it really matter? He sat down on the edge of the bed, forcing a smile. "I'm here." The boy scooted closer, wrapping his little arms around his neck. "I missed you," he mumbled sleepily. His throat tightened. He had no idea what to say. No idea what the right thing to do was. So he did the only thing that felt natural. He held the child close, stroking his hair, whispering, "I missed you too." The boy's breathing slowed. Within minutes, he was asleep. But he wasn't. Because the question still remained. What now? He sat there in the dimly lit room, the weight of the moment pressing down on him like an avalanche. The boy's small fingers still clutched his shirt, his face peaceful in sleep. He had no idea. No idea that the man he called Daddy wasn't really his father. No idea that everything he believed about his family was a lie. His heart ached. He should have felt anger, a burning rage toward the woman who did this to him. And he did. But more than that, he felt something deeper. Loss. A loss so heavy, it felt like he was grieving someone who was still alive. Because in a way, he was. He wasn't just losing his wife. He wasn't just losing the life he thought he had. He was losing his son. A quiet knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. He knew who it was. For a moment, he considered ignoring it. Pretending he was asleep, or that he didn't hear it. But eventually, he exhaled and stood, gently untangling himself from the boy's grip. When he stepped into the hallway, she was there, waiting. Her eyes were still red, her face pale. "Thank you," she whispered. "For coming back." He didn't respond. She swallowed hard, shifting nervously. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you." His voice was quiet but firm. She looked up, surprised. "Hating you would be easy," he continued, running a hand through his hair. "But this? This is something else entirely." She blinked rapidly, fresh tears threatening to spill. "I never meant to hurt you," she said again. "I was scared. I was young. And then, when you stepped up and loved him the way you did, I couldn't take that away from him. Or from you." He let out a slow, bitter laugh. "So you just decided to lie to me forever?" She flinched but didn't look away. "I thought it was the right thing to do," she whispered. "And maybe for a while, it was. But then, it just got harder and harder to tell the truth." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then, finally, he asked the question that had been eating away at him. "What do you want from me?" She took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know what happens next. But I do know that he loves you. That you're the only father he's ever known." His chest tightened. She took a step closer, her voice soft. "And I know that no matter what that test says, you love him too." His jaw clenched. Because she was right. He did love him. More than anything. But was that enough? Was love enough to erase the betrayal? To fix the damage? To make this right? He had no answers. But he knew one thing for certain: tomorrow, everything would change. He didn't sleep that night. He lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning. No matter how much he wanted to find an easy answer, there wasn't one. The woman he had loved, the woman he had built a life with, had lied to him in the worst way possible. And yet, every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boy's face. The way he had whispered "Daddy" before drifting off to sleep. The way his little hands had held onto him, trusting, believing he would always be there. How was he supposed to walk away from that? How was he supposed to look into that child's eyes and tell him that, because of a piece of paper, everything had changed? That the man who had promised to love him, to protect him, was leaving? He couldn't. Because the truth was, he was that boy's father. Maybe not by blood. But in every way that actually mattered. By morning, his decision was made. He walked into the kitchen, where she was already sitting at the table, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. The moment she saw him, she straightened, waiting. He sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, finally, he exhaled. "I don't forgive you," he said quietly. Her face crumbled, but she nodded. "I understand. But I can't walk away from him." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know what this means for us," he continued, his voice steady. "But he's my son. Maybe not by blood, but I don't care about that. I won't abandon him just because of what you did." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I never wanted you to." He looked away, his jaw tight. "This doesn't mean everything is fine," he said. "I don't trust you. I don't even know if I'll ever be able to again." She nodded, wiping at her face. "But I love that boy," he whispered, more to himself than to her. And love, real love, wasn't something you could just turn off. Later that morning, he found the boy sitting on the floor, playing with his toys. When the little boy looked up, his face lit up. "Daddy!" He felt his throat tighten. Maybe one day, he'd have to explain the truth. Maybe one day, the boy would learn everything. But not today. Today, all that mattered was that he was here. He crouched down, smiling. "Hey, buddy." The boy grabbed his hand, tugging him closer. "Will you play with me?" His chest ached. No hesitation. "Yeah," he said softly. "Of course, I will. Because no DNA test could ever change this." The lesson. Life doesn't always go the way we expect. People will betray us. The truth will hurt. But love, the kind of love that is built through time, patience, and sacrifice, isn't defined by blood. It's defined by showing up. By choosing to stay. By being there when it matters the most. And that is what makes a real father.